Holden Holt has a serious rage disorder, and I'm his emotional stabilizer. Everyone around us knows that as long as I'm there, he won't lose control and hurt someone. He brought me into his social circle, introduced me to his parents, and told everyone I was his best friend. But he never knew about the unstoppable crush I was hiding. And I knew he was straight. So after we graduated from college, I disappeared without a word. I declined Holden's call again. Classes started a few days ago, so Holden must know I never showed up for registration. He's been calling me non-stop, but I haven't dared to answer. I know he's probably furious on the other end of the line. After all, we had a pact to go to grad school at our university together. And I was the one who secretly changed my application to UCLA. With his resources, he would have easily found out I never even applied to our alma mater. Sure enough, right after I hung up, a flood of messages from Holden hit my phone. A series of 60-second voice notes. I clicked on the last one. Holden's furious voice exploded from the speaker. "Jacob, you dare to screw with me? You better tell me where you are right now, and I might give you a chance to atone. Make your death a little cleaner. If you don't answer my calls or texts, you better pray I don't find you. Because if I do, I will make you regret it. Call me back. You hear me?" Holden had never spoken to me in that tone before. My hand trembled as I listened. Without thinking, I sent back a smartass reply. Realizing what I just sent, I frantically tried to unsend it, but it was too late. The instant my message went through, Holden replied. His voice was seething, like he wanted to tear someone limb from limb. "Jacob, you've got guts, daring to provoke me. Fine, you just wait." I met Holden my freshman year of college. He was a sophomore at the time. That year, my parents had made a small fortune in their business, so I applied to a university in Boston. Every student at this school came from an influential family, but Holden's family was at the absolute top of the pyramid, in a league of their own. They were an untouchable dynasty, powerful, mysterious, and able to bend the city to their will. And within this elite university, what was even more famous was the temper of the Holt family's youngest son, Holden. He was notorious for being volatile and impossible to deal with. Because of his rage disorder, he was drawn to anything that burned off energy. Boxing, martial arts, racing, bungee jumping, any extreme sport you can name. But his favorite pastime was brawling. Before I came along, he was at some shady bar every other day, getting into a dozen fights a week. That's how I met him. It was a rainy day. I'd been sick during orientation week and had spent most of it in the hospital, so I was just moving into my dorm. I had just stepped off campus to find a place to eat when I saw a man stumble out of a bar not far away. The man's clothes were wrinkled and stamped with dirty footprints. His face was covered in blood as he knelt on the ground, begging for his life. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I had no idea she was your girl, Mr. Holt. If I'd known, you could have given me 10 times the nerve and I still wouldn't have touched her." A group of 7 or 8 young men stood before him. The one in the lead looked down, not saying a word, as he casually lit a cigarette with an expensive lighter. The knuckles on both his hands were stained with blood. His eyes were cold and distant. Shrouded in smoke, he looked even more aloof and unapproachable. Without even glancing at the man on the ground, he gave a slight nod to someone beside him. 2 bodyguards immediately rushed out, grabbed the man, and dragged him into a dark alley. A moment later, the man's blood-curdling screams tore through the air. I wasn't standing that far away, but maybe the man was too terrified to speak clearly, because I couldn't quite make out what he was saying. All I saw was a middle-aged man scared out of his wits, pale and incoherent. My first thought was that a bunch of rich kids were bullying someone, and a powerful sense of justice propelled me forward. I strode up to the leader of the group in righteous anger. I declared, "Hey, what do you think you're doing? A whole group of you against one guy. Have you no shame?" The leader frowned at me, a flicker of violence in his eyes. Everyone around him fell silent. Even the man who had been wailing stopped. The scene became dead quiet. I guess no one had ever dared to speak to Holden Holt like that. The looks on their faces screamed, "You're so dead." I had no idea who Holden was back then. Even though I could tell from their eyes that something was off, I didn't care. I took a few steps forward and looked Holden straight in the eye, my head held high, refusing to back down. We were so close I could smell the sharp scent of cedar and faint smoke on him. The moment I got near him, the rage in his eyes suddenly vanished. He looked up at me, slightly dazed, a hint of confusion on his face. I thought my sheer audacity had intimidated him and was about to tell them to let the man go. Without warning, Holden grabbed my collar, pulling me even closer until our faces were almost touching. I instinctively thought he was going to hit me and balled my fist, swinging for his face without hesitation. Holden casually blocked a couple of my punches before grabbing my arm and twisting it behind my back. I'd never been formally trained, but I grew up in a rough neighborhood where street thugs were always causing trouble. Over time, my punches got pretty hard. But in all the fights I'd been in, I'd never been in such a passive position, completely overpowered in a single move. My heart sank. This guy was a trained fighter. Just when I thought I was done for, Holden did something that made everyone's jaw drop. He lowered his head, pressing his nose against my neck, and began to shamelessly, almost greedily, inhale my scent. His grip was ironclad, my arm locked tight. I struggled desperately, but he was like a rock, completely unmoved. After a long moment, he seemed satisfied and finally let go. I immediately clutched my neck and spun around to glare at him. "What the hell is wrong with you, you psycho?" Holden's friends were cautiously watching his expression, terrified he might snap and kill me. But after hearing my words, Holden wasn't angry at all. He even seemed to be in a good mood as he explained what happened. He tried to drug my girlfriend's drink. Don't you think he deserved a beating? I was skeptical. I turned to look at the man who had collapsed on the ground in fear. He seemed to snap back to his senses, repeatedly bowing his head to the pavement and muttering, "I'm sorry, Mr. Holt. I'll never do it again. Please spare me this one time." It was only when I heard that title that I realized what kind of person I'd provoked. Worse, I was completely in the wrong. I turned back stiffly, forcing a dry, awkward smile. "A misunderstanding. I apologize, Mr. Holt. My mistake." Holden frowned slightly, as if faced with a dilemma. "Well, what am I going to do now? I don't like being misjudged. Tell me, how should I teach you a lesson?" His tone was as casual as if he were asking what to have for dinner, but it sent a cold sweat running down my spine. A bead of sweat trickled down my temple, only to be gently wiped away by someone's hand. I heard someone gasp, "Doesn't he have a thing about germs?" Then, a deep, magnetic voice spoke next to my ear. "Be my friend, and I'll forgive you." And just like that, I was trading numbers with Holden. Then, somehow, I ended up being assigned to the same dorm room as him. Actually, it wasn't a surprise. Eastwood University never assigned dorms based on grades, but on social class. The high-end dorms were in a private villa complex, home to students with incredibly deep connections. And suddenly, a kid from a nouveau riche family, was living there. It was obvious who was behind it. Only one person had the power to break a century-old tradition at Eastwood. Being Holden's friend was actually great. He was incredibly generous. For my birthday, he gave me a watch worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. When he found out who my favorite singer was, he took me to their concert over break. Not only did we get the best seats, but we also got to go backstage for a photo with the artist. He brought me into his social circle, introduced me to his parents, and told everyone I was his best friend. When my parents' business ran into trouble, he stepped in to help. But I knew that, to him, I was just an emotional stabilizer. His friends told me that ever since I showed up, he hadn't gone looking for a single fight at a bar. He barely even smoked anymore. When I was around, he rarely lost his temper. Even when he was furious, all it took was my scent to calm him down instantly. Strangely enough, even knowing I was just Holden's human Xanax, I fell for him uncontrollably. Honestly, it wasn't hard to see why. Holden was breathtakingly handsome. His face so perfectly sculpted it looked like a work of art. He had an aggressive, wild kind of beauty. He could walk down the street in a plain white t-shirt and still turn every head. His body was incredible, too, tall and lean, with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and an 8-pack. Of course, it wasn't just his looks. His charisma was off the charts. He knew about everything from historical figures to local customs around the world, and he could talk about the future of any industry, explaining it all in a way that was simple and captivating. But I knew he didn't like me. He had several girlfriends throughout our 4 years of college. I knew his type. Bright, beautiful women with an elegant air. Not slender, refined guys. Definitely not guys. So, I kept my feelings buried deep inside. But I knew I could never watch him get married and have a family, which meant leaving was always part of the plan. Hey, Jacob, why are you always staring at your phone lately? Waiting for a text from a girl you like? My roommate, Mark, asked with a sly grin. No, I said, shaking my head. Mark didn't buy it. He slung his arm around my neck and gave it a light squeeze. I don't believe you. Come on, tell me who it is. I couldn't tell him because there was no girl. I was waiting for a message from someone else. Ever since he sent me that last threatening message, there had been nothing but silence. It was like he had vanished off the face of the earth. After a few days of living on edge, my anxiety wasn't getting better, it was getting worse. Just then, a commotion erupted at the campus gate. A crowd of students started running in that direction. Mark loved a good spectacle and immediately dragged me along with the herd. By the time we got there, a huge crowd had already formed. Mark was tall and stood out, and he suddenly let out a gasp. Whoa, this looks like a scene straight out of a novel, where the domineering CEO comes to capture his runaway bride. I was stuck in the back and couldn't see clearly. What's the big deal? I asked. Mark thought for a moment. Like a dozen black luxury cars, and each one has 2 bodyguards in black suits standing in front of it. He frowned, feeling his description wasn't doing the scene justice. He waved his hand and said, I can't even describe it. Come on, I'll show you. With that, he put his arm around my shoulders and started pushing through the crowd. When we got to the front, I saw him immediately, even through the rows of people. Holden was sitting in a car, his face dark with rage and impatience. In just a few short days, the aura around him had become much sharper. He didn't see me. He turned to say something to the bodyguards next to him. I froze, remembering Holden's words. You just wait. Without a second thought, I broke free from Mark's grip and tried to push my way out of the crowd. I was praying Holden wouldn't notice me, forgetting that if he could find me here, catching me would be child's play. But in that moment, I couldn't think about anything else. However, fate had other plans. Seeing me leave, Mark yelled at the top of his lungs, Jacob, where are you going? I almost got us to the front. Hey, why are you walking so fast? Wait for me. The moment he shouted my name, I felt a burning gaze land on me. I knew instinctively that Holden had seen me, but there were too many people and I couldn't get out. A moment later, the sound of disciplined footsteps approached, parting the people around me. I looked up at the scene before me. A dozen bodyguards had formed a circle, trapping me in the middle. From behind me came a deep, chilling voice that was as cold as ice. Found you, Jacob. Holden's bodyguards escorted me into the car. The moment the door shut, Holden lunged at me without warning, pinning my entire body against the back seat. Seeing this, the driver silently raised the partition. Holden buried his head in the crook of my neck, greedily and urgently breathing in my scent. I could feel his cool lips brushing against my burning skin, his breath ghosting over my neck. Feeling uneasy, I gave him a slight push. The next second, he seized my hands and pinned them above my head. His grip was strong, almost deliberately painful, showing no restraint. Don't move, he ordered, his tone heavy with annoyance at being disturbed. He slid a hand down to my waist and squeezed hard. Holden was furious about me secretly changing schools. It took a long time for the dark cloud over his face to dissipate, but he still didn't get off me. He propped himself up on one hand next to my ear, his eyes locked on mine. When he spoke again, his voice wasn't as harsh, but it was far from friendly. Who was that guy hugging you? I looked at him and couldn't help but think back to graduation day. Our class was having a farewell party, and Holden came with me. I had planned to confess to him that day, but as I rounded a corner in the hallway, I saw a girl standing in front of him. Her face was flushed, but she still summoned the courage to speak. Holden, I like you. Will you be my boyfriend? Holden remained as cool and detached as ever. I'm sorry, I don't like you. Then I heard the girl ask, is it because of Jacob? You haven't dated anyone since he came along. You like him, don't you? I hid behind a pillar, my fingers tightening nervously around the love letter in my hand until it crumpled. I held my breath, straining to hear Holden's answer. But all I heard was a merciless scoff, as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. How could I ever like him? He's a guy. I'm not gay. But now, his first question wasn't why I'd secretly changed my application, but a jealous inquiry about my relationship with Mark. Suddenly, all those hidden feelings I'd kept locked away couldn't be contained anymore. I wondered if maybe he did like me, even a little, and just hadn't realized it himself. I knew it was just speculation, and it sounded ridiculous, but that tiny possibility made my heart pound with excitement. The urge to tell him how I felt reached its peak in that moment. I looked up at him, my gaze steady, and asked tentatively, "Aren't you going to ask me why I changed schools?" His face immediately darkened. "You have the nerve to ask? Fine. Tell me why." I stared at him, my eyes burning with intensity. "Because I'm in love with you. I couldn't stand to watch you date someone else, so I secretly changed my application." He stared at me for a long time, then suddenly let out a sharp laugh. "Jacob, are you f***ing kidding me? You think a joke like this will make me forget you lied to me?" "I'm not kidding," I said immediately. He watched me for a long moment, then a slow grin spread across his face. He released the hand propping him up and let his full weight press down on me. "Is that so?" he asked nonchalantly. "Then prove it to me." "How do I prove it?" I asked. He raised an eyebrow, his long fingers tapping lightly against his own lips. He slowly mouthed two words, "Kiss me." My brain short-circuited. I was too stunned to think, and I stared at him blankly. "What did you say?" His smile widened. "You said you love me, right? What, are you too scared to even kiss me?" I stared at his lips as they moved, a single thought echoing in my mind. He's telling me to kiss him. Does this mean he likes me? "Jacob, next time you should find a better..." I leaned up and covered his chattering mouth with mine. I stared straight into his eyes and saw him freeze for a second, but there wasn't a hint of disgust. I closed my eyes and deepened the kiss, letting myself sink into the sweet taste of his lips. But before I could truly savor it, I was violently shoved away. My back slammed against the car door, a sharp pain shooting through me. What was even harder to accept was what I saw when I opened my eyes. Holden, wiping his lips with a look of pure disgust. He said, "Jacob, you're disgusting." My face went pale, and I trembled, at a loss for words. He spoke coldly to the driver. "Stop the car." The next second, he turned to me, his face dark, and yelled, "Get the hell out." I scrambled out of the car in shame. The next moment, the car shot off like an arrow, as if fleeing something foul. I had never seen Holden so angry, but he had every right to be angry and disgusted with me. Who would accept their best friend having feelings like that for them? And I was stupid enough not to realize he was just messing with me, to actually think he might like me back. It was all just my own fantasy. Besides, a man of Holden's status and background deserved to be with a debutante from a good family, someone who'd had the same elite upbringing as him. But I really was so in love with him. I blinked back the moisture in my eyes, trying hard not to let the tears fall. There was nothing to cry about. The next second, I completely broke down. I'd left my phone in his car. Now I really had nothing to cry about. I'd wear out my shoes before I could walk back to campus. I sniffled. I'd cry when I got back to the dorm. I needed to save my energy for walking. After about 10 minutes, a black Maybach pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, and I saw it was one of Holden's bodyguards. He gave me a polite nod. "Mr. Chun, please get in. I'll take you back." "Did your boss send you to take me back?" I asked. He nodded. I gave a bitter smile. If only he could be a little crueler to me, then maybe I wouldn't love him so much. But he always gave me hope just when I was about to give up, hinting that I was different to him. And then, when I finally mustered the courage, he shattered all that hope without a trace. After I got in the car, the bodyguard handed me my phone and even offered a few rare words of comfort. "Don't be upset, Mr. Chun. The boss won't be angry with you for long. To him, you're definitely different. When he was little, his parents were always busy, so he was raised by a nanny. That nanny had some mental issues and would always hit and curse at him when his parents weren't around. That's why he ended up with such a volatile and cold personality. But after he met you, he became so much calmer. Even his doctor said his condition was improving. He's probably just mad that you deceived him right now. He'll get over it in a little while. He didn't know what had happened in the car. He still thought Holden was angry about the school application. I sighed helplessly. It's not about that. It's about something else. Something serious. I crossed a line. He just smiled. Whatever it is, the boss will forgive you. I guarantee you're the closest person to him, besides his future wife. Can't I be the closest person to him? I muttered it under my breath, but the guy had ears like a hawk and heard every word. He said, "Hey, you're crossing a line there. Even for a best friend, you can't exactly sleep between the boss and his wife. And you definitely can't sleep in the same bed with the boss while his wife sleeps alone in another. You're his best friend, not the evil mother-in-law in a family drama." When I got back to campus, Mark was still waiting at the gate. Seeing my pale face, he opened his mouth to ask, "Are you okay?" I nodded without saying anything. Seeing my dejected state, he had a rare moment of insight. "You didn't get rejected after a confession, did you?" I looked at him. Most people wouldn't connect two guys like that. He met my gaze without flinching, and in that instant, I understood that Mark and I were the same. Mark patted my shoulder comfortingly. "It's okay. I had it way worse. I tried to steal a kiss from my uncle, no blood relation, I swear, and he called me disgusting and screamed at me to get out. I felt like I was about to choke. Some comfort. We were in the same boat." Seeing my speechless expression, he awkwardly rubbed his nose. "Forget it. Let me buy you a drink. We're not going home sober tonight." As we walked to a bar, he suddenly asked, "So, are you a top or a bottom?" "Top." He burst out laughing. "With those skinny arms and that nice ass? You're definitely a bottom." I shot him a glare. "Why can't I be a top? What about you?" "I'm a bottom." I glanced at his muscular build and toned physique, incredulous. "You're a bottom?" He gritted his teeth. "What choice do I have?" "He's a top." Our eyes met, and we fell into a knowing silence. We hadn't even gotten anywhere with our crushes, and here we were, already thinking about the details. What neither of us noticed was that a few girls behind us overheard our conversation. The next day, a post titled "First Year Finance Major Bottoms for Love" blew up online. When I woke up, I saw Mark had sent me the link. The post was about our conversation from last night, but they'd gotten the people mixed up. They thought Mark and I were a couple, and that he was the one bottoming for love for me. I opened the comments section. OMG, who is shipping this new pairing? A buff power bottom and a fragile short top? I'm so desperate I'll eat anything at this point. Ha ha ha, say what you want. But they actually look good together. Can they just switch positions, though? OMG, he really loves him so much. I'm crying. To bottom for love is just so cool. I pulled back my bed curtain and looked down at Mark, who was sitting on his chair with a goofy grin. "Should we clear this up?" I asked. Mark immediately shook his head. "No way. You have no idea, my uncle just called me. He was so pissed. He asked what was going on between us. You don't know him, this is a guy who wouldn't flinch if a mountain collapsed in front of him, and this is the first time he's ever been this mad. He must be jealous." He looked up at me with teary eyes. "Bro, you have to help me out. Besides, you can use this to test if he really doesn't like you." There was no need for a test. I already knew he didn't like me, and I was done with my wishful thinking. But if this could help Mark get his guy, that would be great. I waved my hand dismissively. Whatever. The post was only trending for a morning. By the time I came back from class in the afternoon, it was gone. Just as I was about to search for it using different keywords, a call from Grant came in. "Hey, Jacob, can you please try to talk to Holden? He's been in a foul mood since yesterday, and this morning he saw something that made his face turn black as coal. He's been drinking at a bar ever since. Can you talk to him? He listens to you more than anyone." "Talk to him about what?" I was the one who lit the fire. I was the reason he was angry. Forget talking to him, he'd probably explode just from hearing my voice. I thought for a moment and chose my words carefully. It's not really a good time for me. Given our current status, unlabeled, but we'd kissed, and I was the one who initiated it, it really wasn't a good time. Jacob, who are you talking to? I thought we were gonna shower together. The next second, a loud crash echoed from the other end of the line, like a bottle being smashed on the floor. Then the call was abruptly disconnected. I stared at my phone, a dense, prickling pain spreading through my chest. He really did hate me. Just hearing my voice was enough to make him that angry. I put my phone away and looked at Mark. Why do you just say things like that? What do you mean shower together? I meant go back to the dorm and shower separately. I noticed the people around us trying to hide their snickers and quickly shut my mouth. Realizing what I'd said still didn't sound right, I quickly grabbed Mark and dragged him away. The next few days were uneventful for me. Just eating, sleeping, and researching. The typical life of a grad student. Holden never messaged me again, our contact was completely cut off. Mark and his uncle, however, had a massive falling out. Can you believe it? He went on a blind date. That bastard. Isn't he into guys? How could he deceive another girl? How could he hurt someone else? If he wants to be a player, he should just play me. Don't go ruin someone else's life. Come ruin mine. I was helping him walk back when he suddenly turned to me, his breath thick with alcohol. Do you like me? Tell me. Do you like me? I knew he had me confused with someone else. Seeing that he wouldn't let it go until I gave him an answer, I decided to play along and pretend to be his uncle. Patted his back. I do. You're my favorite, Mark. In the whole world, you're my favorite. He stared at me, a look of disbelieving joy in his eyes. Really? Your favorite in the whole world? I nodded. He smiled and collapsed into my arms, whispering softly, I like you too, Uncle. Just as I was about to help Mark get back to campus, I saw a familiar figure flash in the distance, but the shadow disappeared so quickly I couldn't get a clear look. For some reason, even though I hadn't seen anything clearly, I had a feeling that person looked sad. I was about to go after them when Mark suddenly retched, throwing up all over the ground. I was too busy cleaning up the mess to think about anything else. It wasn't until I was finally lying in bed that I suddenly remembered the silhouette looked a lot like Holden. Then I shook my head, thinking how ridiculous I was being. Why would he come looking for me? He probably wanted to stay as far away from me as possible. Later, I heard from someone that Holden had gone abroad. Apparently, his rage disorder had gotten worse, and he went overseas for treatment. His mother came to see me a few times, asking for some of my clothes, saying they would help with Holden's condition. I felt incredibly guilty. If I hadn't kissed Holden, his illness wouldn't have gotten so severe. So after that, I started shipping my clothes directly to his address abroad, and I kept doing it until Holden's condition stabilized. 6 years later, my colleague, Amy, looked at me with a worried expression. Jacob, the company's been acquired, and we still haven't heard anything from the new boss. Do you think we're all going to be laid off? What if the new boss is a nightmare to work for? I smiled. I doubt it. I haven't heard any rumors about layoffs. Everyone relax, and let's be ready. The new boss should be here any minute. Just then, a message popped up in the company group chat. New boss arriving at the marketing department. At the same time, the elevator dinged open. A group of executives emerged, flanking a man in a sharp suit. His features were sharp, his expression cold. He looked much more mature and composed, and his presence was even more intimidating than it was 6 years ago, making people afraid to get close. I stared at him, frozen in place. It wasn't until Amy tugged on my sleeve that I snapped out of it. I pinched my palm, forced a calm smile, and walked up to greet him. Welcome, sir. He gave me a brief glance, his face showing no emotion, as if he didn't know who I was at all. He gave me a polite nod and then continued his conversation with the company's shareholders. Holden didn't stay in the marketing department for long. I didn't know whether to be relieved or sad. But then I thought, if he's moved on, at least my job is safe. However, I had barely sat down at my desk when a new message appeared in the group chat. Marketing Director Jacob Chen, please come to the CEO's office immediately. Amy glanced at me. Director, you don't have some kind of beef with the new big boss, do you? Why does he want to see you right away? I managed a tight smile. Of course not. Don't be silly. It was way more than just beef. The new boss probably wanted to strangle me. The man you think is so honest and kind has a mouth on him, and he's not afraid to use it for a forced kiss. Terrifying. In the CEO's office, Holden was sitting casually in his chair. The moment I opened the door, his eyes locked onto my face. For some reason, I felt his gaze was bottomless, as if he were suppressing some powerful emotion. I looked down, composed myself, and when I looked up again, my face was wearing a flawless, fake smile. Sir, you wanted to see me? He frowned slightly, as if displeased with my title, and let out a soft TSK before speaking. Give it back. What? Did I take something of Holden's and not return it? I had no memory of it. As I was trying to figure it out, my vision suddenly went dark. Holden was standing in front of me. His eyes were a raging storm, making no effort to hide the aggression and possessiveness within them. I instinctively took a step back. When I spoke again, my voice trembled. Give what back? He grabbed my hand, pushed me down onto the office sofa, pinned both of my hands above my head with one of his, and slowly traced a line from my neck to my lips with his other hand. The kiss you stole from me 8 years ago. Give it back. My brain crashed. Wait, do you know what you're saying, MMPH? Holden lowered his head and crushed his lips against mine, silencing all my words. Just as I was about to suffocate, Holden mercifully released me. He gently caressed my slightly swollen lips, his gaze unreadable. Didn't your ex-boyfriend teach you how to kiss? I was completely lost. What ex-boyfriend? His fingers pressed down on my lips, applying a little more force. Liar. I hissed in pain, my eyes welling up. I'm not lying. I don't have an ex-boyfriend. He looked at me with a half smile. 6 years ago I came to find you. I heard you telling him you loved him, that he was your favorite person in the world. You even called him Mark. I suddenly remembered that familiar silhouette. So he really had been there. But why did you come looking for me? He buried his head in the crook of my neck, freely inhaling my scent. I didn't understand back then that I was in love with you. I just saw you with someone else and suddenly couldn't control myself. I brought chains with me that day. I thought, if you won't listen, I'll just have to lock you up by my side. Make you mine and mine alone. You'd only be able to look at me, only talk to me. Your world would be nothing but me. Do you know what I was thinking when I heard you admit you loved someone else? I was thinking, that mouth of yours was telling me you loved me just a few days ago, and now you love someone else? In that case, you might as well not have a tongue at all. A chill ran down my spine, and my body broke out in a cold sweat. He reached up and gently wiped the sweat from my forehead, then chuckled softly. Terrifying, right? I thought so too. That's why I had them take me abroad. I knew I needed help, or I would have ended up hurting you. Those years abroad were hell. I missed you so much. I wondered what you were doing if you were still with that guy. Every time I saw the clothes you sent, I'd think, you got new clothes again, your taste is still terrible. It looks like you changed your body wash. Is it because he likes it? The doctors said my condition couldn't be cured. It was a constant battle for years. Until one day, I heard that Mark had a new boyfriend, and I suddenly felt like I didn't need treatment anymore. Jacob, I know I hurt you before. I was wrong. Can you forgive me? Jacob, can you please take care of me? My mind was buzzing, trying to process everything at once. This wasn't right. Holden, that's not it. You like girls. I took his hand and pressed it against my chest, sliding it down my torso. Do you feel that? I'm the same as you. We have the same body. You can't like me. You're straight. His long fingers brushed over my stomach, his gaze so direct it was almost naked. I like it. As if afraid I wouldn't believe him, he added, I like it. My head was spinning from his words, and my mouth moved on its own. Holden, you should come over to my place for ramen tonight. I don't remember how I got out of his office. It wasn't until I was back at my own desk that I snapped back to reality, frantically grabbing my hair and letting out a silent scream. Damn it, Jacob, what are you saying? Are you out of your mind? What are you doing? Maybe I could just explain to Holden that when I said ramen, I meant actually literally eating ramen. Ha ha ha. Great idea. Terrible idea. In that situation, who would think I was talking about actual ramen? Maybe I should run. But I couldn't run forever. Time passed without me realizing it. I looked up and saw Holden sitting across from me, waiting for me to finish work, and swallowed hard. Maybe you should head home first. I still have a lot of work to do. He gave me a half smile. Can't finish it? I nodded eagerly. Yeah, there's a ton to do. You should go ahead. I don't want to waste your time. He suddenly stood up, walked behind me, and leaned over, wrapping his arms around me. His hot chest pressed against my back, his hands covering mine on the mouse. His face was so close I could feel his scorching breath on my ear, making one side of my body tingle and burn. It's fine. I'll help you. In the end, thanks to Holden's incredible efficiency, we left the office at 8:30 p.m., finished dinner by 9 o'clock, and then he took my hand and we walked to a convenience store. Under the clerk's knowing gaze, he asked me without a hint of shame, "Is there any kind you want to use?" I was so embarrassed my toes were curling in my shoes. Whatever you can decide. At 9:20, we were back at his place. He told me to go take a shower. At 10 o'clock, he said if I didn't finish soon, he was joining me. At 10:15, he finished his shower and dried my hair for me. At 10:25, he pushed me onto the bed. Watching his eager movements, I thought, once he sees my body, he'll probably back off. That's what I told myself. And then I cried until the next morning. You're awake. Holden walked in holding a bowl of pear soup. I opened my eyes and looked at the man standing in the doorway. I tiredly lifted my hand, and he instinctively brought his face close to it. I gave his cheek a weak slap. If you ever do that again, I'm slapping your face off. He just smiled, completely satisfied. Does that mean you forgive me? Forgive him? It wasn't about forgiveness. Holden hadn't done anything wrong. Back then, he really was a straight guy, so his reaction was normal. Before today, the worst-case scenario I'd imagined was that we'd get undressed. He'd say he couldn't do it, and we'd go our separate ways again. But it seemed like he really didn't care that I was a guy, and he really did love me. So what was I still hesitating for? This was the person I had loved since I was a teenager. Holden, size 8.5. For my ring finger. He heard me and leaned in to kiss the corner of my mouth, a delighted surprise on his face. I know. I measured while you were asleep.